Okay, so now we have our recipe done, as it were. Here's our page that we're going to recreate the structure for. Jumping into Dreamweaver, and I'm going to first of all create a new assignment folder, right-clicking, new folder, calling it assignment 4. Pressing enter. Inside assignment 4, I will go to File, New, and create a new HTML document. Make sure that it's HTML5 and not any of the others. Create. We're not going to be attaching a CSS file to this. We're going to ask Dreamweaver rather to use the same page as the source. We're going to define a page so that all of our CSS is stored here at the head of the document. I'm also going to change my workspace a little bit so that I can look at my insert menu a little bit better. Currently it gives me the structure that I need, however it's crowding my CSS Designer. I'm going to click and drag on top of my document, so now I have my menu here displayed horizontally. Structure is what we want. I'm going to also minimize my file space, clicking and dragging into the well here and collapsing the column, also making this a little bit thinner so it's just the icon. And now I have my CSS Designer, and this is basically what I need. I also have my recipe here, and let's get started then with these values. And we're going to start with the banner, and the banner is going to have its own division, but not a div division. This actually, since it's HTML5, we have new divisions called headers. We have another one called nav for navigation, article for big content divisions, sections within articles. We have asides for sidebars and other divs, and finally we have a footer note that we can use for a footer. Move this out of the way. So banner will be our first division. We're going to click on header and add insertion point with an ID of page banner, our new header. Click OK, and the code reflects the change we made. Next we have a navigation bar, and the navigation has its own icon up here. Click on navigation. In the insert, rather than whatever it tells you here, do it after the tag. Find the page banner we just added, and this will have an ID of page nav or page navigation. And click OK, and now we have our first two divisions. The next thing we'll do will be the content, and the content will have two divisions inside of it. So rather than using div, we're going to create an aside and make sure that it's after the tag that we just created, after page navigation, and this one will have an ID of main content. I'll click OK to accept it. Since I'll be using two divisions inside of main content, I'm going to highlight and delete that text, and then in the code I'm going to press enter a couple of times so that my new divisions will go inside of the main content division. Inside the aside, we can create two sections. I'll create the first one at the insertion point, and I'll give it a class of slideshow. I'll click OK. Following the section tag closing, I'll press enter again, and I will be adding a new section, and that will be called news. I'll click OK. After the content aside is finished, we're going to have another aside that will be called showcase, that will house in our 4 little info boxes, and I'll use a new aside then. Click aside after the last tag we used, which was the main content aside, and this one will carry an ID of showcase. Click OK. Because I'm putting in 4 info boxes, I will delete the text inside. Make sure I am in between the 2 aside tags, and next put in a section that will be at the insertion point with a class of info, and I'll click OK. and we're going to have 4 of these total. So I'm going to highlight the text here from section open to section close. I'm going to copy, go after the section, press enter. I'm going to press Ctrl V once, twice, then 3 times, and I have now 4 info boxes that follow the news that are residing inside the showcase. We have another division coming up called events, so let's actually use an article for this. Click on article, and I'm going to click it, and we'll put it in after the tag that we last used, which was the last aside, the showcase. This one will have an ID of events. Press enter. Put it in. For links, we'll use another article after the last tag we used, which was events, and we'll call this one links. And then the final one is the footer. We have our own button for footer. Click on that. Let's insert this one before the end of a tag, before the end of body, because as you can see, body's at the very bottom, and if we put the footer before body ends, then we know it's at the very bottom. I'll call this one page footer, and I'll click OK. So now we have our basic structure built. Of course, it doesn't look anything like our page, so let's add the measurements that we need for each one of these. We start with the page banner. I'll highlight page banner in the code, go to my CSS Designer, make sure that I am in the style sheet, and add a selector. Click plus. Page banner is automatically typed in. I'll press return. We're going to give it the measurements that we have set up, 960 by 70. Let's find page navigation next. Page navigation selected. I will go to the style sheet again. Click on selectors. Accept page navigation. Page navigation is a width also of 960, but a height of only 40. Moving along to the content. This is going to be the aside that we created, main content. I will click, go to style, click plus to add a new selector. Main content is accepted. Our width for content needs to be specified as the width of the whole site, which is 960. And we see that our boxes are 350 each, so I'll give it a height of 350 as well. Inside of the content, we have our slideshow. I'll highlight the slideshow, click on plus on the selectors. Main content dot slideshow. Return. Our slideshow is only 600 wide, and it is also 350 high. This being a box inside a division, let's float it to the left. Float left. Next we have the news. Highlight news. On our style, click a new selector. There's our news. Press return to accept. Our width for news will be 350 pixels and 350 height. It's a box. This one will also be floating to the left. And this one, because there's a well in between the divisions, it should be floating to the right. That done, let's go to the next one, which will be our showcase. Highlight showcase and style, plus to add a selector, press return to accept. Our showcase is 960 by 220. Let's get the width at 960 and the height at 220. Inside there's the info boxes. Let's find the info boxes in the code. Just the first one will do. Click on plus, enter to accept. Our info boxes are 240 by 220. These, since they're inside a division, would also need to be floating to the left. Next we have our events. The events article highlighted in style, Getter selector open, and the width for events is 960 by 260. Some pixels, 960 by 260. Followed by the links article. Highlight links, style, add a selector for links. 960 as are all the others, and height for links is 170. Finally, we have our footer. Highlight page footer, style, get our selectors going, press return. The width for this will be in pixels, also 960, and height will be 20. So we've inputted all of our numbers from our recipe. Let's see what this design is looking like. I'm going to collapse my CSS Designer to get more space. And we have our banner followed by the navigation space. We do have a slideshow on the left. We have news on the right. We have 4 boxes for our info. We have an event space, and then we have links, and finally the footer. You'll also notice that this is cradled to the left, and usually, and before in HTML4 or XHTML, we would say, you know, why don't you just use a wrapper around everything? Well, you already have a wrapper, and well, we already really have a wrapper, and that's the body tag. The body tag that manages everything starts at the very beginning here. I'm going to highlight body. I'm going to add a selector for body and press return to accept. On the layout, I'll say in pixels, body can only be 960 pixels. Leave the height as auto so that all the content we need can go in there. And then the margin, I'm going to click on the left margin, set that to auto. On the right margin, and do the same, auto. And let's see what that looks like in design now. Our page is centered and it's 960 pixels wide. So pick another 3 websites out there of your choice and build the structures using the same techniques I just showed you, and submit the HTML files through eCampus so that I can take a look at them.